Welcome to the District 15 Democratic Caucus Candidates Forum for our D15 Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee, MCDCC representative, male or non-binary. The D15 Democratic Caucus is made up of our D15 precinct officials and our elected Democratic state representatives. Our D15 district stretches from Potomac to Poolesville and includes 33 precincts. The Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee, MCDCC, is a group of 26 volunteer members elected to 4-year terms with 2 members from each legislative district and 8 at-large members. The MCDCC leads the day-to-day operations of our local Democratic Party. Due to the resignation of our previous D15 MCDCC representative, we have a vacancy. The MCDCC will appoint a person on November 14th to fill this vacancy and complete the unexpired term ending November of 2026. The deadline for filing this vacancy was Monday, 2 days ago, November 6th. 3 candidates applied: Colin Richard, Will Roberts, and Michael Schreier, all currently precinct chairs. The purpose of tonight's forum is to get to know these candidates. We will not be voting, but individuals can send a statement of support for their preferred candidates directly to the MCDCC online form. The link for that is bit.ly/SOSD15MCDCC. I'll put that in the chat in a minute. Tonight's forum moderator is Craig Rice. He was our former state delegate and Montgomery County council member in Germantown area. And he is currently the vice president for community engagement for Ronald McDonald House Charities of Greater Washington, D.C. I will be the timekeeper and give each person a 30-second warning before their time is up. I'm going to be using these sheets. That's red for stop and yellow for 30 seconds. We should be ending around a little after 8:30. The questions were given to the candidates beforehand. So take it away, Craig.
Well, thank you very much, Ginger, and hello to all of old friends as well as new friends. It is an absolute pleasure, and welcome to the D15 representative candidates, Colin, Will, and Michael. Before we start, I want to make sure that I acknowledge some of the elected officials that are with us this evening. I know that we have Brenda Wolf, who had responded from our school board. So want to welcome her. I want to welcome all of our members of the Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee, all of our electeds there as well. I don't see any other folks who have, if I'm looking here at the list that I've missed, who are also electeds. But yeah, did really want to thank all of our MCDCC members for all of their great work in continuing to make sure that our Democratic Party is strong. As we see in what we saw in Virginia, that's what happens when you have a strong Democratic Party. So let's keep this going. Now, a few housekeeping items. I'm just going to ask that everybody please keep your microphones on mute. And if you have a question, please put it in the chat. I'll make sure to be going through the chat periodically and looking at some of the questions and picking some of those for some of our candidates as well. Tonight, each candidate is going to have an opportunity to introduce themselves with an opening statement. And then I'm going to ask each candidate to respond to several questions that the candidates have received ahead of time. And again, I may ask a couple questions that have been submitted in the chat as well. Each candidate will then have an opportunity to present a closing statement. And I'm going to alternate on which candidates speak first to give everybody a chance to be able to answer the question first. I know that so many times that is an important advantage. So I'm going to start off with our very first question to get us in. We want to make sure that we follow the limit, approximately 5 minutes total, about 15 minutes. So we should end at about 7:25. So let me start off with our first representative, and that would be Colin Richards. So Colin, why do you want to apply for the open D15 MCDCC representative position?
Thanks, and thank you for hosting the forum today. My name is Colin Richard. Interested in the opportunity to represent District 15 in this role for two reasons. Interested in supporting informed and more engaged Democrats in Montgomery County, and particularly District 15, and interested in advocating for District 15's interests at the county level with the Democratic Party. I believe my experience is both my career experience and experience with the District 15 Democratic Caucus and the Democratic Party in the county is relevant to this role. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'll turn next to Mr. Roberts, Will Roberts.
Excellent. Appreciate Colin modeling brevity, but I might use the 5 minutes. So good evening, everyone. Good evening, Craig. Good to see you again. And great to be with fellow members of the D15 Democratic Caucus and other county Democrats. I'm Will Roberts. I know a good deal of you, but for those of you who don't know me, I think it's a couple of things are important to let you know about myself before I answer your question, Craig. I'm a husband, a father, a community leader, fierce advocate for the Up County and for District 15, where my family and I have lived for the majority of our nearly 14 years as residents of Montgomery County. Professionally, I'm a civil rights lawyer, former legislative director and chief counsel for Congressman Jamie Raskin, and spent a lot of those years here in Montgomery County as a dedicated party activist here in District 15, proudly the precinct official at Wilson Wims Elementary in Clarksburg. And over the years, I've enjoyed serving in many roles in our party, been the president of the Young Dems and the president of the Black Dems, a role that I hold currently. Also served as an area coordinator and a precinct official, both up here in District 15 and elsewise. But I've also enjoyed doing some other jobs that don't need titles, things like envelope stuffer and fundraiser, postcard writer, sign placer, polling place staff, or door knocker. And I've counted that as a privilege to be an active and engaged member of our local party up here, because I take pride in what it means to be a Montgomery County Democrat and believe strongly in the values of our party and in the work that it takes to build it. I was humbled back in 2015 to receive the Morgan Journey Community Service Award from the Central Committee for some of that work, and talked about why I think it's important and intrinsic to being a Democrat to also be about service to the community. And so it's that service that I've been rendering over the years, and really pride in our party that caused me to apply for the vacancy when it came available. As you mentioned, Craig, at the top, not just from the fantastic results in Virginia, but the fact that we are on the clock now, less than a year away, again, from one of the most important elections in our lifetime. And the choices, could not be clearer between the MAG extremism that's being offered on one side and our party that's going to fight for open and inclusive multiracial democracy. So what does that mean for District 15? Principally, District 15 is going to be a central part of the conversation of what happens in the open Maryland 6th Congressional District seat that could really determine the balance of power in the House, if we're being frank. And so the stakes for the work that Democrats have to do in Montgomery County and District 15 in particular over the next year couldn't be higher. So I, in looking at this opportunity, number one, am focused on that, wanting to bring the extensive relationships that I have in the community, my unique perspective on what it takes to engage the diverse communities of D15 and the work that I've been doing, as I mentioned, for some time up here. You know, we have a fantastic district, wonderfully diverse, but as folks who have run for office up here know, we've also got, you know, more than our share, more than the share of our neighbors in the rest of the county of unaffiliated voters. We know that just a couple cycles ago, Governor Hogan did pretty well up here. And so, you know, this is a time for us not to take our foot off the gas. We've got a lot of work to do to make sure that we can engage and inform Democrats, not just for this next election, but to grow the party. And so that is principally why I'm asking to serve out the remainder of this term. I'm really excited about joining the Central Committee and being a proactive and collaborative colleague with the rest of the folks here, looking to engage, again, Democrats around the county and in District 15. And so I look forward to talking to you more about that experience tonight and how I'm going to be able to provide that, how I'm going to be able to roll up my sleeves with you all to help build our party and
30 seconds.
provide collaborative, informed, and effective representation for our district.
Well, thank you very much, Will. Let me turn to Michael Schreier. Why do you want to apply for the open MCDCC District 15 representative position?
Sure. Thank you, Craig. And I'm going to follow the script of the questions and use this as an opening statement as well. And so, again, to everybody, I have a lot of familiar faces. Thank you. I'm Michael Schreier, and I'm running for the, I'm seeking the MCDCC's appointment to the District 15 seat. And I think I have the experience, wisdom, temperament, leadership skills to be a highly effective Central Committee member with a primary focus on the upcoming 2024 general election and voter protection efforts. Now, before discussing my qualifications, the reasons why I want to be appointed to the position, let me give you a little more background about myself. I grew up in Rochester, New York. I graduated from Cornell University in 1990 with a bachelor's in government and economics. And then I moved to Washington, D.C., where I graduated from the George Washington University Law School in 93. I'm married for 29 years to my same wife, who is a graduate of the Johns Hopkins University and is currently a federal employee working for a sub-agency of HHS here in Montgomery County. I have two children who each went all the way through MCPS, and they both graduated college, yay. And but they're all gainfully employed here in the DC metro area and now living in Montgomery County. And finally, I've lived in the same house located in D15 now for the last 27 years. So over that 27 years, I'll give you a little bit about my experience. I'm also a lawyer, and by coincidence, it looks like all three of us are lawyers. I'm sorry for you all this evening, but I'm a little different from these guys. I'm more of a litigator, and I started my career as a card-carrying member of OPIU Local 2 while working as a staff lawyer at the General Counsel's Office of the American Federation of Government Employees, where I engage in many organizing drives and educate rank and file members on their statutory rights, as well as being an appellate litigator and district court litigator. Then I moved to the U.S. Office of Special Counsel, where I prosecuted violations of various good government laws and also enforced the Hatch Act, which is kind of important for a lot of our constituents who happen to be federal employees. And for the last 23 years, I've been in private practice, where I've represented clients in a broad array of industries and multiple areas of law in federal state litigation here in Maryland and across the DMV and the country. And then finally, in addition to representing clients, I'm also an arbitrator. I'm on the panel of the arbitrators with the American Arbitration Association. And people pick me all the time because I have a sort of a, I hate to use the term, but a fair and balanced outlook on handling employment disputes and business disputes based on my varied background and all my other various experiences. So again, I mentioned before about voter protection, and I'll just give you a real short. I started getting involved back in 2016 when Hillary Clinton ran, because again, I saw the impending storm, and I joined voter protection efforts there, and it fulfilled me. So then I insinuated myself with the Maryland Democratic Party, and was part of the Maryland Democratic Party's voter protection efforts from the 2018 cycle, the 2020 cycle. You know, but seeing voter protection efforts over the last 4 cycles, because the last cycle I was working with the MCDCC, I was pro bono counsel to the Central Committee overseeing the voter protection efforts here in Montgomery County. It's clear to me that, politics is not a spectator sport, and the average citizen needs to step up to practice active democracy. And so by becoming a member on the Central Committee, allow me to bring my years of voter protection experience to bear and to assist the Central Committee to find strategic and creative ways to allow registered Democrats to actively participate in democracy in the 24th cycle and beyond. Now, unlike the other two candidates, I was on the ballot in 2022 for this very position. So I did that, and also in early 22, when this position became vacant, I threw my hat in the ring with the Central Committee to be appointed to this position. So if you ask, why am I looking to do this? Because either I'm a glutton for punishment or I really want this. So I'm going to go with the latter, that I really want this. But the nice thing, and I say this for informational purposes only, that through a quirk of
30 seconds.
Oh, well, in that case, 30 seconds. All right. We'll move along. Bottom line is that there are a lot of things that I can bring to bear with all the voter protection work that I've done for the Democrats. I've done some work with the Lawyers Committee on voter protection work. I deal with federal employees. I've been a union organizer in my role as a lawyer. And all these are qualities and quantities that I think I could bring to bear on behalf of the Central Committee. So given the time, I'm sure I'll touch upon all the other issues later when you ask me other great questions.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. And I did want to circle back to Colin, as I am a fair arbitrator when it comes to making sure that everybody has an opportunity. Colin, this was your opportunity to actually do your opening statement that addressed why you want to apply for the position, as well as the skills and experience that you feel you'll contribute, as well as your involvement in parties. Because Colin really only spent about, I'd say less than a minute. So if we can give him 4 minutes, Colin, if we can circle back to you so that you have an opportunity to do your opening statement.
Great, thanks. Yeah. Thanks again. We'll note a little bit about my experience, both career experience and experience with D15 in the Montgomery County Democratic Party. I know the district well. I'm a father of 4. My kids have attended some of the outstanding schools here in the district. And I really appreciate a lot of the great resources that District 15 supports, including the Ag Reserve, the Soccerplex, and the abundant natural resources and natural spaces we have in our community. I'm applying because I know that I can help advance District 15's interest with the Central Committee. As I mentioned before, interested in supporting informed and more engaged Democrats in Montgomery County and advocating for District 15's interests. I've spent most of my career as an attorney, initially in private practice, and then as in-house counsel with mission-focused technology companies. Significant experience advancing organizations' efforts to achieve strategic and project goals. In terms of experience in D15 with the Democratic Party, I'm an active member of the D15 Caucus, regularly attend meetings and other events. I'm a current precinct official, area coordinator. I was previously the precinct vice chair for my precinct. And I have substantive experience communicating with Democrats, including through canvassing, and the opportunity to hear a lot of the issues that Montgomery County Democrats and District 15 Democrats are interested in. As a member of the Central Committee, I plan to be active. In my career, I've actively worked to create outcomes, support organizations with which I'm involved, and to intend to bring that same focus and attention to my involvement with the Central Committee. Particularly interested in the opportunity to serve as a member of the Rules Committee and Issues Committee. I believe I would represent District 15's interests capably as a member of the Central Committee. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. So now, gentlemen, I'm going to go to a number of the prepared questions. Mr. Roberts, I'm going to start with you first. How will you engage the Democratic community in District 15? Especially, how are you going to inform them about the Democratic priorities and get out the Democratic vote? How will you be able to ensure that you frequently participate in D15 caucus meetings and activities as well? You have 3 minutes.
Sure. So thanks for the question. I'm currently a very engaged member of our caucus, also attend our events regularly, whether they be our social events or our sort of more our social events, our community events, or our more substantive sort of party engagement events. And so I'll definitely would continue to do that. But I think that it's important to figure out how to engage D15 Democrats beyond the caucus, right? And so I think some of the things that are really important to do, there's low-hanging fruit, right? Engaging with other communities of interest that are already created in the district that may not necessarily be political, but that we may know some folks in who are political. Oftentimes, for various reasons, folks don't like to organize. Some folks don't love to organize around party politics like we do. We clearly do, but some folks don't, right? But it is important to really engage them, particularly in our community. I mentioned in my opening statement about, us having a district that has a higher number of unaffiliated folks. We're also a growing district, so we've got a lot of new folks in here, but we do have work to do to make sure that we are continuing to do the party building. And so I think it's important, one, to identify some of those areas and circles where we may have relationships, or map perhaps some relationships through other sort of avenues and interests. Your PTA involvement, other civic involvement might get you in a circle that it's really important to talk about what D15 Democrats are doing and how people can get involved. I think certainly lots more people are going to be paying attention next year with the election coming up, and so may have some more folks primed to hear our message as well. I think for sure, definitely would look forward to helping to push the message of the Central Committee and the information we're sending out, whether it be with the newsletter and social media presence, etc. And in particular, wanting to focus on diverse communities as our community up here continues to grow and develop. And so those are some of the ways that I would look to engage folks up here. And I mean, also note that it's not a one-person team. There are other members representing the district, and so would look to work with them and with the caucus to find ways to continue to do that as well.
Excellent. Same question to you, Mr. Schreier.
All right, thank you. So how will I engage with the D15? Well, when I ran for this position about a year ago, I experimented heavily with social media because, as you know, anybody who runs for a Central Committee position is limited to a fixed budget and can't fundraise and do anything else. Fortunately, my eldest child happens to work for a Democratic communications firm in downtown DC. So she was whispering in my ears and giving me some hints about how to effectively do the communications on my own. But I found very creative ways to harness and to leverage social media in a way that got some outsized results in the polls. But I think that's the means. But then there's the question about the message. And I think it's a question of trying to focus on kitchen table / governance competency messages rather than necessarily focusing on culture war or divisive issues. Because the lessons I take away from yesterday's elections is that certainly the governor of Kentucky was reelected because he focused on kitchen table issues, showed that the Democrat was competent to govern. And I think particularly given the run up to the 2024 cycle, where the focus could be on presidential and congressional races, I think that's a very important distinction to be made. And I think that's a message that will resonate with folks in D15 and perhaps throughout Montgomery County. So that's what I would focus on. And also, again, the how to do it, I would certainly try to recruit seasoned communications professionals who reside in Montgomery County to donate their time to help with the communication of the message. Because one thing that I found in the 2020 cycle, that there were a lot of my friends and contemporaries who were just itching to find a way to participate, to defeat the Republicans. But there were no clear channels and no clear avenues for doing that. And so a lot of them became frustrated. I overcame that by becoming more fully involved. But again, maybe I'm just unusual. But I want to make this as easy as possible for folks who are able to amplify the message, who are able to take advantage of social media, which is a force multiplier, because that reaches people in their houses, when they're on the metro, when they're in a coffee house and they can see the messages as opposed to having fixed
30
events.
seconds.
I think that's the question on the table. Anything more to that question for now?
Well, we'll get back to more. We have a lot more questions.
Sounds good.
Let me turn to Mr. Richard. Same question. How will you engage the Democratic community in D15, especially how will you inform them of Democratic priorities, get out the Democratic vote, and how will you frequently be able to participate in D15 caucus meetings and activities?
Thanks. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier in the meeting, a big reason that I'm interested in this opportunity is the ability to advocate for District 15's interest with the Central Committee. Necessarily, that requires a lot of communication with District 15, understanding what interests are relevant, what responses, what comments to ongoing events, and also providing updates about what's going on at the Central Committee. I plan to remain active with the District 15 caucus, continue attending the meetings. More than that, I think it's being available for conversations, asking what interests are relevant at the moment, and providing updates about what's going on at the Central Committee. And so one example is after each of the meetings, providing a written summary to the caucus and clubs that have an interest in District 15 and what's going on at the Central Committee, and plan to continue having conversations throughout the term.
Excellent. So I've heard a lot of conversations around what it is that we need to do as a party. So what I'd like to hear from, and I'll start with you, Mr. Richard, is what are your top priorities for the MCDCC? What are the top priorities for us as a party?
Yeah, I'm focused on continuing to support informed and more engaged Democrats in Montgomery County, and particularly in District 15. As a result of that, trying to continue to highlight a lot of the issues that the parties focus on and how that connects with the interests for District 15 residents. I mentioned earlier, have experience communicating on a lot of these issues and plan to continue those conversations. I think there's a big opportunity for other organizations to hear about the good work that the Central Committee does, and as a result, to expand the number of individuals that are engaged with the work that the party's doing in the county.
Let me turn to Mr. Roberts.
Sure. So I think my top priority, especially for the next year, is making sure that I can do everything possible to help the Central Committee help Democrats win in District 6 in particular. I think it's really important that we've got lots of energy, right, across the county, and we know that there are certain districts that have sort of fuller voter and volunteer roles than others, right? I think it's important for me as a D15 member of the Central Committee to make sure I am, we were talking about whispering in the ear earlier, Michael, to make sure I am communicating, whispering, doing whatever, sending whatever kind of signals to make sure that we get the full energy and engagement of our really vibrant and diverse party up here, so that we can make sure we're doing everything possible to draw out a big Democratic turnout in the general election next November. So that's the top priority for me, the Maryland District 6 race, and building the party apparatus to help support that and beyond. I think outside of the scope of the election, I'm really interested in the outreach efforts of the community, of the Central Committee, to reach out again to parts of the community that don't always hear from the party, and to reach out to and help to draw in some of those more diverse voices. I think, again, really critical up county when you got areas like Germantown and others that are among the fastest growing, most diverse in the county. There's like lots of untapped energy and potential there. And so helping the Central Committee and the caucus think through creative ways to reach out to people, I think is a high priority for me. Definitely want to be able to support the Central Committee's fundraising efforts, not just around our major fundraisers, but throughout. And also important to me is helping out. I know there's a ongoing effort to engage our Democratic clubs more as a alum and current club leader. Really important for me because those are some of the ways that folks really start to engage with the party. So those are sort of the priorities that I would have as a Central Committee member. Craig might be frozen.
Looks like Craig is having some technical difficulties. Kathy, if you have the questions at hand.
I think Michael was next.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Michael.
Hey, Michael, why don't you go?
Okay, well, we go. I'll give Craig another 20 seconds to hop back on, or you just want me to launch in?
Go ahead, launch in.
Okay, I'll launch in. Great. All right. So you asked what my top priorities are. I think I have 4 of them. In no particular, in particular order: voter protection, voter mobilization and engagement, communications, and strategic planning. Let me talk about each of them. Voter protection. Again, I keep coming back to it, but I see that 2024 as an existential threat. I don't know how much the threat is going to be in Montgomery County or in Maryland, particularly given how solidly Democratic the state is, but still I would not put it past our noble opponents to make some trouble. So I think we need to have a very robust voter protection effort, and planning for that starts now. Additionally, part of that would be to recruit federal employees to join the efforts. Now, traditionally, federal employees are very reluctant to engage in anything that smells of partisan politics because of the Hatch Act. However, having been a former Hatch Act prosecutor, I know the ways around this, and there are ways to effectively do this, and perhaps even get an advisory opinion from the Office of Special Counsel, allowing folks to engage in voter protection efforts without acknowledging that doing so would not violate the Hatch Act. But I think especially around here, that would open up a tsunami of individuals who have vast amounts of leave and disposable income and who are able to take a day or 2 off from work to do voter protection efforts to ensure that there's no shenanigans at the polls. As far as voter mobilization and engagement, I have heard horror stories from some of my colleagues over the years who work for the other side about how they go about and they will rent all the minivans in a rural jurisdiction to prevent the Democrats from be able to take people to the polls. And I'm not kidding you about this. You kind of sit there and go, really? Yes, really. So I think now it's time to start creating carpools, rent vans and buses, and come up with a strategy to get people to the polls. A dynamic plan that allows people who are going to be motivated by our communications, which I'll get to in a second, to go to the polls on election day and during early voting. Now, again, I talked earlier about the third one, communications, about kitchen table issues, and show how Democrats govern. Because I think in a lot of respects, people are tired of all the noise and all the bickering between the parties. But one thing comes clear to me as I see the train wreck that has been the Republicans over the last couple of months with the speaker and all this stuff going on in the House, that they have a hard time governing, that they're just a bunch of bomb throwers. And I think certainly people in Maryland are looking for stability, looking for a calm hand, somebody who can govern. And the more I think we can focus on that and communicate that in a way that resonates with Democratic voters, I think that will serve us all well in the long run and incentivize people to come out to the polls. Finally, strategic planning. Again, this is what I do for a living, to try to find, identify a problem and come up with all the various solutions to that issue. Time? Okay.
Well, thank you, Michael. You'll be able to get back to it, I'm sure, with some of the other questions, because My next question is one where I've heard each of you talk about your families. And as a former elected official, I know that time for families versus time for so many of these laudable tasks and goals that you have is quite the challenge. So how much time will you have to participate in MCDCC activities? Will you have the time to attend all of the MCDCC meetings? And how much effort will you devote towards fundraising, which we know is all important to accomplish so many of the things that all of you have been talking about when it comes to making sure that we support the Democratic Party. So let me start with Mr. Roberts.
Sure. So I'm definitely committed to this. Wouldn't have put my name in if I wasn't. I think would be irresponsible to step up and try to fill the role, knowing all of the time commitments necessary. So I definitely have time to attend the regular meetings, to do the work outside of the meetings, to interface with the caucus. You know, I am someone, as I imagine that most of you are, that wears a lot of hats, but I think the adage, right, is if you want something done, get a busy person to do it. Is that what it is? And so I'm looking forward to being able to dedicate some of my time to this. You know, I'll note that 2 years ago I ran for the county council, noting that was going to take up a good amount of time from my family. So I did check in with Michelle and with Mackenzie, most importantly, my 5-year-old first, before I decided to put my name in the ring here. And they told me to go ahead and do it. So and as for fundraising, I talked about that briefly before, but I think it's an important part of, should be an important part of every central committee member's role to assist the party in making sure that we've got the resources necessary, not just to do things like get the sample ballot out, but to do the party building activities that we know are the things that will help grow and sustain the party. So I think it's a paramount responsibility to be part of the fundraising.
Mr. Richards, same question to you, sir.
Thanks. Yeah, this would be a top priority for me. I expect to be able to contribute and support my responsibilities. I would plan to attend all the meetings, both the county meetings, continue to attend the D15 caucus meetings, as well as be active with much of the work outside of just the meetings, with committee work, with a lot of the ongoing responsibilities, help think through and support ongoing activities, and look forward to the opportunity to help support with fundraising efforts as well.
And last but certainly not least, Mr. Schreier.
Well, thank you. As far as having the time, as I indicated before, I'm an empty nester, so I have no family. As a matter of fact, my wife told me to get a hobby after the pandemic was over. So this is what I choose to pursue as my hobby, which is why I ran last year, because I made the conscious effort to find the time in my schedule to do this, despite the fact of being a partner in a nationwide law firm with all the responsibilities that come with. I still think this is important, and I'm one of those people who very jealously guards my time, and I dole it out as appropriate, and I deem this to be an appropriate use of my time. So I will fully adhere to attending meetings and participating in all events to further the mission of the Central Committee. Now, as far as this would be my only other extracurricular activity outside of work, other than choir practice, which I'm literally missing right now to be with you all tonight. So again, you see the priorities here. As far as fundraising, yeah, I've done some of that in the past. Not my most favorite thing to do, but that said, given my contacts both with certain parts of the business community in Montgomery County, as well as a fair number of folks who live in Montgomery County and work downtown, who I've been in communication with over the last 6 or 7 years, since 2016, trying to find ways to combat the scourge that is the orange one, and they're looking for ways to contribute, and they're looking for ways to participate, and it's simply a question of being able to tap into that and give them an easy opportunity to do so. So again, I think it's one of those things that just have to make it easy for folks who have the resources to be able to donate. and to lay it out for them.
Mr. Richard, my next question for you, if you have a disagreement with our MCDCC leadership and or elected Democratic leaders and officials, how are you going to address this? Do you feel it's appropriate to air any concerns with the public or the press? And if so, please explain.
My general approach is focus on solutions and next steps. And so in situations where I have disagreements, my initial approach is to have a discussion, have a conversation with the individual, understand perspective and what is motivating the concerns, what are the goals, and then trying to identify opportunities to collaborate and reach positive outcomes and next steps to move ahead. I mean, fundamentally, the role is about being part of a team here, and the Central Committee's purpose is to serve as the governing entity for the party in the county. And I think that a focus on the mission and the purpose can help to address some of these considerations.
Mr. Schreier, I'm going to come back to you on this one. If you have a disagreement, are you going to air that in the public? How are you going to handle these kinds of things? You heard the question, so.
Certainly. Well, first off, let me just say, I would view the Central Committee as my client. Granted, I'd be a party to it, but it would be my client, and I keep client confidences. And so definitely want to keep it in the family. That said, I'm going to give you a lawyer answer. If somebody on the Central Committee were to engage in flagrant illegal activity, then I may have an ethical obligation to report something. But as a general proposition, I'm not a fan of going to the press about anything, even when I represent clients in litigation, and it would be in their best interest to go to the press to try to gather some kind of public sympathy as to their position of some kind of national importance or national implications. In my experience, the press frequently get things wrong, even despite their best efforts to get it right. And so I've seen it through experience, at least, that the press sometimes has a tendency to make matters worse than better when airing grievances in public. So that would be the last place I would want to go.
Mr. Roberts, same question, sir.
Sure. So I don't disagree with what's been said at all. I think it's important to be collaborative, constructive, in order for you to work productively as a member of this rather large team that represents a large, diverse, diffuse party, right? And so, of course, there are going to be disagreements that come up, but I think it's about trying to meet people where they are and find a way to work through it constructively so that we can continue the positive work of building the party. And so, no, I don't think that certainly I know that I would not try to air grievances in the ways described. Certainly transparency is important and would strive for that so that folks know about the conversations and considerations that the party has going on as we're making important decisions, right? That is certainly important, but doing so in a way that, again, is constructive, productive, trying to move forward, trying to help us build up rather than tear down. So that's sort of the lane I'd be coming from.
Well, gentlemen, I think the great thing is we, as Democrats, all think alike and have the same things, right? That was a joke. You can laugh. It's okay. So, look, let's go into a quick round of yes or no questions. I'm just going to roll through these and just do a little bit of rotation. One of the hot button items is where we are this evening. Should MCDCC be on Zoom? Let me turn to Mr. Roberts. Yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Schreier?
Yes, for the win.
Sounds like we're all in coordination there. So that sounds terrific. I'll just editorialize a little bit. I know that the Montgomery County Council, when we went through COVID, participation actually grew with our public when we had Zoom options that were available. And so I'll just share as a part, I'll take my liberty as moderator to just share that we saw that tremendous increase in participation. I know that technology is not everyone's friend. I've had some challenges this evening with some of my technology, and if any of you guys can work on connectivity in Darnestown, that would be fantastic. I'd appreciate it. But that being said, let's get back to the questions. Should MCDCC meetings be recorded and posted on the Central Committee's webpage? I'll start with you, Mr. Richard. Yes or no?
No.
Mr. Schreier?
No.
Mr. Roberts?
As long as there's not sort of executive session type information, I don't have a problem with that, actually.
Okay. All right. So we're going to go to our next one, which is, should MCDCC grant van access to the precinct chairs? And so for those who don't know what van access is, that is our network. So should that network access be available to the precinct chairs to make sure that when it comes to voters, they have access to that for all of the precinct chairs? So let me start with you, Mr. Schreier.
That's a more nuanced question than a simple yes or no, that given the time allowed, but I'm going to say no. And you can feel free to ask me a follow-up as to why, but no.
Well, in fairness, and we are a little bit ahead of schedule. So as moderator, I'll be able to do a little editorializing here too, as far as time goes. So I'm going to actually give you a chance to respond beyond the yes or no. So Mr. Schreier, please go ahead.
Okay, because there's van is granted under license, and there's potentially confidential information in there, or at least information the whole world would not want public. And unless and until we would require the precinct chairs to sign confidentiality agreements and be willing to enforce them, I think it's inviting disclosure of information. Not saying that anybody would be improper or would have nefarious motives, but I do a fair amount of trade secret litigation and breach of confidentiality agreements, and this just has hazard written all over it for me.
And Mr. Roberts, should van access be granted to precinct chairs? And please feel free.
Sure. So, so I think likewise nuance. Now you're getting the lawyer section of our programming tonight. So I know that the state party, for instance, does do sort of van training, and I do not know the nuances of this. I would know it, I guess, if I was on the Central Committee. So I would be interested in having precinct chairs have van access to get walk lists, for instance, as you are, door knocking in communities, to do that, even outside of election years, so that you're just engaging with voters. But I'm not sure that requires them to have direct van access, or to get, for instance, a walk list from Minivan on their phone or something like that. And so I think there's probably a sweet spot in the middle where you could get access to the information to be able to use for legitimate purposes, without having to have a bunch of licenses and some of those other issues.
Excellent. Mr. Richard.
Yeah, similarly, I think with training and in relevant situations, I do think that there's opportunity to support some of the mission of the precinct organization and its purpose. I think the Central Committee probably already has a policy on van access that addresses some of these considerations. And so to the extent it's consistent with that.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, I am going to pivot into some of the questions that came in through the chat. And one of them I'm going to editorialize a bit. Being a person who was elected to represent D15, who's seen since 2006 have been than other counterparts through our county. And so with that being said, what are the ways in which you are looking to increase voter turnout in some of these areas? And I'll start with Mr. Schreier.
I apologize. Your connectivity was a little going in and out. I missed the first half of the question, so I apologize.
No, you're all right. You're all right. can you hear me now? Okay, Mr. Schreier?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay. All right. I cut off my video because that's oftentimes what happens when the video's on. So let me just say that being a representative of the Up County since 2006, I've seen as well as heard too much around the lack of voter participation, voter turnout, and voter registration when it comes to the Up County. What do you intend to do as a member of the Central Committee to ensure that people in the Up County are registered as well as turn out at same levels as we see through other parts of our county? And Mr. Schreier, for you first.
Yeah, thank you. All right. All right. So if I understand the question is, how do we enhance voter protection Up County? I think it's I think it's a spin on everything else that I've discussed this evening. I think number one is communication, because a lot of the Up County communities are relatively recently created and built. You don't have established communities like you do down county, down where I live. So you have to be a little more intentional. Don't know if it's simply a question of trying to get involved in some community fairs, community festivals, to the extent that they exist. But certainly social media push with very narrowly tailored geographical reach, I think would be a very easy lift. Also trying to work at the various schools to the extent one can do this type of work either on the school ground or adjacent to the school ground, to meet the families where they are, to increase voter registration. As far as voter participation, again, it's going to be more of trying to do community organizing in relatively less developed neighborhoods. When I say less developed, and less history, that they haven't been around for 20 years. And so it's a question of trying to find a way into those neighborhoods to generate interest, to make the registration available, and to make it seem like it's on the winning team. Because again, it comes down to bread and butter kitchen table issues, especially in the diverse parts of District 15. Because one thing I do want to leave off with, that at least in 2018, D15 voted for Hogan. So D15 is a very purple part of Montgomery County, and so I think there are a lot of opportunities there to pick up independents and crossover votes if we message it correctly. So I think it comes down to messaging almost as much as trying to get penetration into those communities with a message.
Excellent. Let me go ahead and turn to Mr. Richard.
Thanks. Yeah, I believe a big part of it is communication and being present to hear the issues that are relevant to District 15. So, in closer proximity on the timeline for events like turnout and registration and participation, but also much earlier, being present at events that are going on, working with and communicating with existing organizations that have their own networks, canvassing, the multiple approaches that each contribute in its own way to having that conversation. And when the conversation's ongoing, it helps to reinforce that when the time is necessary.
And Mr. Robert.
Sure. So I'll just add to what's been said, that I think has been pretty fantastic. Have to meet people where they are, right? As I mentioned earlier, not everybody organizes themselves according to their political party or political inclination, and so we have to break into bubbles that are like non-political but have people who can be activated, right? And so that's like who's on the neighborhood WhatsApp, who's in the PTA, the swim team, the soccer team, that kind of stuff, right? Have to meet people where they are. I think we've got to be, as our district has grown, and certainly grown more diverse, thinking about different ways. And this is not just a D15 problem, although you're talking about voter registration in D15, but it's a Democratic Party problem of figuring out how we reach out to diverse communities, to new American communities, to engage them around issues. Where we had, really great conversation that Delegate Lily Chi led maybe it was a couple weeks back or a couple months back at a caucus meeting about some of the ways that we need to be rethinking our outreach to the AAPI community. Doing that kind of like deep work, I think, is important before we can sort of yield the dividends of like the voter registration. Some of it, I think, also is just shoe leather. Colin, I agree with you on canvassing. I'm a big believer in sort of off election year canvassing. Back to that question about fan access, I think we need to be on doors and not be afraid to be out there knocking doors, having conversations with Democrats just about things that they care about, and talking about why they can and should be engaged in our local party. So I think that's all things we need to be doing. I'm interested. There are a lot of really engaged young people in the Up County, and interested as we're about to get a new wave of eligible voters, ways that the party is making sure that we are engaged and locking in with young people in the Up County to get them on the voter rolls, but also get them engaged in the party. I think is another.
So I have another question for you, and there are a couple more that are coming through in the chat as well. But and it's something, Mr. Roberts, that you had mentioned. So I'm going to turn to you first. How do we engage more of our young people, not only in coming out to vote, but also being involved and engaged in being a part of the Democratic Party, mainly through MCDCC?
That's a great
Mr.
question.
Roberts, to you first.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I mean, I think underlining that question is, the fact that we didn't have that many applicants for the sort of youth high school MCDCC member, right? And so glad that we had somebody who stepped up. But I know in years past, like long time ago, through MCYD, we used to try to work with young people at Montgomery College and in the high schools, try to link with some of the local Dem clubs to get them involved in MCYD, the Montgomery County Young Dems, to get them involved in some of the work of the party. It's a hard one. Young people have to see themselves in the party, and they are not always really eager to come out to a conversation that we're having that's like sort of high level party politics, and they want to talk about sort of issues and how this is a party that is working on things, that is reflecting values that reflect what they care about. And so I think, although the MCDCC is not a policy-making body and is not a body set to discuss policy, like that's not our role, we're about party building, but I do think there's something to be said for us talking more with our elected officials about how we can work together to try to engage young people, particularly around some of the policy aspects of what they're doing. And so I think that's one way, certainly, and to interface with young people. I used to be a young person, but I guess I'm not so much anymore. But those are some of my thoughts.
Yeah, join the crowd, Mr. Roberts. Join the crowd. Mr. Richard.
I think similar to some of the notes I mentioned earlier about having the conversations, working with existing organizations, having a range of events and opportunities that the Central Committee for the Central Committee's activities, but also with the clubs and caucuses as well. I think as more District 15 residents and Montgomery County residents hear about what the organizations do, where there's opportunities to be involved, what kind of issues and topics and work the organizations focus on, it allows individuals to kind of think through how each individual wants to or could contribute to the organizations. And I think having more information available on those topics allows for that to happen.
Excellent. So I did want to talk a little bit about process, because one of my concerns, and I know this is addressed by some of the folks on Central Committee, is that oftentimes once a person raises their hand to be engaged and they're not chosen, then tend to disconnect from the party. If you are not chosen as representative, will you still be engaged and involved in helping to support the party in whatever other ways you can? And I'll start with Mr. Richard.
Sure. Michael, did you have a chance to respond to that last?
No, I didn't, but it's okay. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Michael. No, Mr. Schreier. I'm sorry. I left you out on that one about young people. I apologize.
Well,
But I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Richard. But Mr. Schreier, go ahead. Young people.
young people. Well, I got two answers for you. Are we talking short term or long term? Because we're talking short term. Fortunately, I have two kids who are recent college graduates and came up through the MCPS system. So, the first thing would be do some good TikToks or some viral memes, because my kids love that stuff. We always have a good chuckle over a good viral meme, and a good clever meme or a good clever TikTok is of outsized weight for this generation, I found. But the content has to show why they are relevant, why their votes matter, and how they effectively hold power. Because again, it's one of those things that if this recently graduated students or 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, just see government as this big thing over here that I'm too powerless to deal with. You got to show them how they're relevant, how they can fit in, how they can have an impact, but do it in a very clever way, in short bites that folks who are not policy wonks and are not part of the system, can put their arms around. I think that's going to do a lot to getting people to change their attitudes and feel that party politics does matter and civic engagement does matter. Now, as far as long-term goes, I know that one of my children participated in Jamie Raskin's Democracy Summer program, which was a fantastic thing. So, an idea to consider, to the extent that the MCDCC were to think about it sort of as a long-term play, maybe to come up with something analogous to what Congressman Raskin does, or do it in conjunction with him, or something along those lines, to give a larger cadre of young voters an opportunity to become involved and to be able to participate in the system and understand how it works and understand why it's important to participate.
Thank you very much. And sorry about that, Mr. Schreier. Apologize.
No problem.
So, Mr. Richard, back to you in terms of, if you are not chosen as the nominee, how and will you still engage and be involved with the Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee, and more so the Montgomery County Democratic Party?
Yeah, and certainly the brief answer is yes. I've enjoyed being able to contribute and support efforts recently, and I'm currently a precinct official and would like to remain supporting efforts in District 15, and particularly as we're looking ahead to 2024 and all the work that'll be necessary going ahead. I intend to continue to be involved.
Mr. Schreier?
Well, this is, as I said, this is my third time trying for this. So clearly I don't give up. So I think you can expect that I will continue to participate. As I think I indicated before, I did this pro bono work for the MCDCC. I was outside counsel doing voter protection stuff at the last cycle. I was on the ballot question committee. I'd be more than happy to serve in any way that the Central Committee asks me to serve if I'm not chosen. So more than happy to continue to participate.
Mr. Roberts?
Certainly, likewise. I can't get rid of me that easy. So there are a myriad of ways to dive in and participate. Really important election coming up next year, but also important party building work that has to be done. And so that's why I've been here, been engaged. As I mentioned before, the runner-up in the Democratic primary to succeed you, Councilmember Rice. but stuck around and have been continued to be active and engaged up here in District 15 in the Up County. That wouldn't change.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for those answers. That's always great for our Democratic Party to make sure that we have folks engaged. We know we need that. That's an incredibly important part of continuing to make strides when it comes to building that network of individuals. And I think that part of one of the things that I'll, again, editorialize as your moderator is that you continuing to step up and volunteer sets an example for those young people, not just the young people in your families, but also the young people in the communities. The reality is that the more people that folks see who are willing to step up and do this kind of work sets an example for others about why it's so important for our community. And so really just want to take an opportunity at this point to say thank you to each of you for continuing to really put yourself forward in this way to want to continue to serve the Democratic Party, but more importantly, this community. It is incredibly important, and representative democracy is one of the greatest things that we have here in the United States of America. So thank you to each of you gentlemen for that. I'm going to check and see if there are any other questions in the chat that I may have missed. Kathy, was there another question that was out there in the chat that I may have missed? I want to make sure that I've got them all addressed.
No, I have not seen any.
Okay. So gentlemen, I want to give an opportunity for you to do closing statements, but before we do, I did want to do just one last thing that I always find a little bit fun. If you were to describe yourself to an individual that you met on the street in one word, what would that one word be? And Mr. Schreier, I'm sorry, but I'm going to start with you.
You start with me on that one. Okay. One word. Gee. Pensive.
Thank you. Mr. Richard.
Active.
And Mr. Robert.
Tenacious.
There you have it, Central Committee. Pensive, active, and tenacious. Those are all great things. I mean, I absolutely love it. It's really great. I mean, those alone should give folks a lot when it comes to, folks don't expect these kind of questions. And that's why these off the wall questions are ones that are really, I think, some of the most helpful when it comes to determining where you want to go. And of course, I have no dog in this fight. I'm just excited that I have 3 folks that are active and really want to continue to serve our community. So I'm going to go ahead, if there are no objections from my Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee members, go ahead and pivot into our closing statements. I'll go in the reverse order from where we started. So we started with Mr. Richard, then we went to Mr. Roberts and Mr. Schreier. So Mr. Schreier, we'll start with you with your closing statement. Please limit your response to, I'm going to give you 3 minutes only because we're still ahead of time. And so want to give you an extra minute. So you have that extra minute. The closing starts with you, sir.
Well, I hope to take a lot less time than that, given the hour and the fact that I still have to go to my choir rehearsal afterwards. So I want to thank you all for the opportunity. Thank you all for giving this forum. I think this is a valuable opportunity. I think that the Central Committee is going to have a hard decision because there are 3 very qualified candidates that we all bring very different but similar qualities to the position. But I think the bottom line is that I have a certain skill set, which I outlined before. Happy to answer any other questions anybody else has, but through all my voter protection efforts, both through the Democratic Party at the various at the presidential level, state level, and local level, as well as voter protection efforts, and my prior work with union organizing, as well as my strategic planning. I see the Central Committee's role, at least over the next 364 days, as being singularly focused on the 2024 election cycle and what we can do to make sure that Democrats are elected up and down the ballot at the federal and to the extent that there are state races in the state level. But more importantly, that that we protect the right of all Maryland citizens to vote. And if what we see in the paper recently about the other guy's desire for revenge is going to come true, I don't think any of us should delude ourselves that what we saw in 2020 is going to be nothing compared to what we're going to see in 2024 as far as tricky games and dirty tricks by the other side. So I think it's very important to start planning now for those contingencies, to be able to anticipate, to be able to have to gather volunteers to start committing resources and making plans, as opposed to doing this on a sort of ad hoc basis on the eve of the election, which in prior cycles, it's certainly in some of my other roles that has been the case among some Democrats. Again, with my work with the state party, they always held out Montgomery County's voter protection effort as the gold standard within the state. I'd like to make that platinum. So please, I look for your endorsement and look forward to next week's Central Committee vote.
Thank you very much. Mr. Roberts, your closing statement.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Rice, for moderating this really fun discussion. And Colin and Michael, it's been great to share the time with you. Likewise, it's been great to share the time with everyone who showed up to hear us and to submit your questions. I think it's a really important part of what makes our party vibrant. And so, I hope that tonight what you heard from me is not just why I have the sort of requisite skills and experience, but about some of the ideas that I'd like to bring to the table, about why I'm excited about the potential to fill this role. And so for District 15 members, if you are so inclined, Kathy did note in the chat the link to the statements of support that the Central Committee is collecting by Friday at midnight, I believe. So if you're so inclined, I would love to have your statement of support there, but have enjoyed the work that we've done together over the years, and look forward to continuing that on the Central Committee. As I mentioned before, the election we have coming up here in the 6th District, I think, is the sort of most important thing in front of us here in District 15, and is an opportunity for us to be sort of ground zero for the fight for democratic values that can reverberate up to Congress and Capitol Hill, could be a difference maker between a Speaker Jeffries and a Speaker Johnson, or whomever they would find to put up again. And so I'm excited about the opportunity to be with the Central Committee next week and to talk some more about my interest here, but I'm just really encouraged by the discussion we've had here, and really excited about the work that we're going to do together as a party, no matter how this turns out. But hope to have your support, and thanks so much for your time tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Richard.
Thanks. I'm interested in this opportunity to help advocate for District 15's interests and considerations, and contribute to the mission of the Central Committee in Montgomery County. I've been active with the D15 caucus, I've been active with the Montgomery County Democratic Party, and I look forward to the opportunity to continue to be active in this role, supporting the Central Committee's efforts. I just wanted to end by saying thank you for hosting this forum and for providing this opportunity for each of us to discuss. And thank you for joining us for this discussion for the last bit of time. Thank you.
Well, thank you to you three gentlemen. And before I turn it over to Ginger and Kathy to kind of close this out, let me just say this. There's a quote that I love from our current president. Because we know there is nothing inevitable about democracy, just as generations before us stepped up to defend it, we must answer the call to preserve democracy for generations to come. So together, let us continue to remember that government of the people, by the people, and for the people is our greatest strength. And to each of you gentlemen, and to all of my Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee members, and all of our other supporters of our Democratic Party, thank you for being the greatest strength of this great United States of America. It has been my pleasure to be your moderator this evening, and I turn it over to Kathy and Ginger. Thank you so much for the honor.
So thank you. Thank you for everybody who has come. Thank you to the candidates. We have 3 great candidates. Thank you to our moderator, Craig Weiss, and all of you who have attended. Just as a reminder, I put in the statement of support, bit.ly, if you can fill that out. We can't go wrong because all 3 are great. And the deadline is Friday, and I'm not sure if it's midnight or not, but if you can get that in. I also put in my contact information if you want to get involved, and if you want to learn more about MCDCC activities, go to mcdcc.org/newsletter. And thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Good night. And Craig, thank you so much.
My pleasure. My
you.
pleasure. Take
Good
care.
night. Thanks,
guys.
Greg.
Okay.
My pleasure, Pam.
Ooh.